silent modern kitchen holds a quiet jar. Yet within this glass lies a dark and deeply violent, forgotten universe. The rough surface of a single seed slowly expands, swallowing the light to reveal an ancient and completely untouched world. We fall entirely through the wooden shell, plunging into a world of dark ash, surrounded by endless ocean. Towering volcanic peaks pierce the morning mist, standing as silent guardians over a fragile and incredibly valuable botanical treasure. Deep beneath the canopy lies rich volcanic earth, feeding roots that soon spark a war, forged in pure human greed. An isolated archipelago, lost in the vast sea, holding a secret that the outside world desires beyond all rational thought. A pale yellow fruit hangs in the damp air, waiting quietly for the moment to break, dictated entirely by wild nature. Warm monsoon rains wash over the emerald leaves, carrying the intoxicating scent of raw spice through the humid air. The fleshy exterior splits wide open, revealing a core that resembles a beating and completely exposed human heart. Ocean waves relentlessly crash against jagged rocks. This solitary Eden remains hidden from the greedy eyes of distant continents. Brilliant crimson mace wraps tightly around the dark seed, clinging like blood vessels to a precious and highly coveted golden core. Golden sunlight slices through the dense canopy. The humid jungle breathes life into a spice destined to change history. Beneath the vivid red web lies a hard wooden shell, guarding the treasure sleeping inside its dark and completely silent core. Night falls softly over the Banda Sea. The sacred trees stand tall under a canopy of scattered silver stars. A single drop of water slides down the blood-red mace, silently foreshadowing the terrible human cost of this earthly gift. Dawn breaks over the ancient volcanic soil, awakening an island completely isolated from the known civilized world. Deep roots blindly drink from the dark ash, pulling raw and ancient geothermal energy into the fragile growing stems. High above the damp and shadowed earth, the sprawling canopy forms a natural and nearly impenetrable fortress. A tiny, solitary bud begins to form, silently preparing to birth a spice that will alter human destiny. Ceaseless tropical rains pound the dense foliage, washing over the sacred botanical sanctuary, hidden in the vast ocean. The delicate, bell-shaped flower finally opens, releasing a highly intoxicating and heavy fragrance into the humid air. Exotic native birds circle the mist-covered peaks, entirely unaware of the looming shadow, gathering far across the sea. The flower sheds its petals to the earth, leaving behind a smooth green orb, swelling with hidden immense power. Endless dark blue waters guard this botanical cradle, serving as a natural and mighty barrier against an infected world. Weeks pass as the harsh tropical sun beats down, turning the smooth skin into a pale and golden bruised yellow. Crimson light bleeds across the fading evening sky, reflecting perfectly on the silent waters, waiting for the impending harvest. The ripe, fleshy exterior suddenly cracks open, exposing the shockingly vivid and violent red mace concealed deep inside. Indigenous islanders sleep peacefully under the vast cosmos, protecting a sacred biological treasure chest, completely oblivious to foreign greed. The scarlet tendrils grip the dark central seed, mimicking the terrifying beauty of exposed and incredibly fragile human anatomy. The spice falls silently to the damp earth, ready to be carried far away into a continent plagued by death. The dark shadow of pestilence creeps across a dying continent, spreading a cold and absolute terror. Over the medieval cobblestone streets, a desperate population searches blindly for any cure, hoping to find a miraculous salvation, hidden inside ancient medical texts. Thick smoke from burning herbs fills the bleak air, attempting to mask the rotting stench of a highly terrified civilization. An apothecary crushes dried roots within a heavy bronze mortar, grinding a rare and costly blend to ward off the plague. The frightening silhouette of a plague doctor wanders the alleys, carrying a grim and silent warning to those who still breathe. Deep inside the leather beak rests a protective filter, holding the exotic and fragrant dust of a distant island paradise. Rumors of a miraculous golden seed sweep through the courts, promising a divine and perfect shield against the invisible Black Death. A tiny piece of nutmeg rests on a silver scale, outweighing a solid and heavy pile of pure, glittering royal gold. Desperate nobles lock themselves inside grand and opulent palaces, hoarding the precious and fragrant spice, while commoners perish outside entirely. A velvet pouch, heavily embroidered with intricate golden thread, securely hides a single, whole seed, worn closely against a beating heart. The intoxicating aroma masks the heavy scent of despair, bringing a false and temporary peace to a highly vulnerable mind. Sharp iron tools carefully scrape the hard, woody shell, releasing a fine and golden powder into the dark, damp air. Wealthy merchants calculate massive fortunes under flickering candlelight, trading human fear for extreme wealth in a completely shattered society. A wax seal firmly closes a secret parchment contract, legally binding a deadly new trade for the coveted plague cure. The legend of the magic seed echoes across the continent, demanding a vast and continuous supply from the hidden eastern world. A long caravan moves blindly through the heat, carrying a hidden and immensely valuable cargo across the merciless ocean of sand. Heavy hooves sink deeply into the burning earth, leaving temporary marks in the shifting dunes, soon erased by the howling wind. Cold night falls over the silent desert camp, guarding secrets beneath a brilliant star canopy, while ancient merchants rest their bodies. Calloused hands adjust a gleaming brass celestial tool, navigating the empty void by ancient stars, ensuring the golden spice reaches safety. Wooden ships carve bravely through the violent waves, riding the harsh and unpredictable monsoon winds, carrying the stolen breath of Banda. Heavy ropes scream against the aged wooden masts, battling against the absolute fury of nature, protecting the fragile cargo stowed below. A chaotic market thrives beneath the dusty awnings, hiding the true source of this treasure from the greedy eyes of Europe. Rough hands turn the dark seed over carefully, inspecting the flawless and highly prized surface, measuring its weight against pure gold. Armed guards watch over the heavy iron chests, keeping the mysterious origins a total secret, preserving a highly lucrative trading monopoly. An iron key slowly turns the heavy lock, unlocking a dark and intensely fragrant vault, filled with the magical plague cure. Foreign merchants whisper quietly inside the dim tent, exchanging massive fortunes for a tiny seed, ignorant of the distant bleeding island. Heavy gold slides slowly across the woven fabric, resting silently beside the dark, rough shell. A perfect trade of human fear. A solitary merchant watches the ship sail westward, sending the magical cure toward dying kingdoms, securing his own vast personal wealth. The ancient map of hidden routes rolls tightly, concealing the exact location of the islands, ensuring the monopoly remains entirely unbroken. The warm desert sun fades into absolute darkness, preparing the stage for an incoming empire built entirely on extreme bloody violence. The grand city of water rises from the morning fog, displaying an immense and breathtaking golden wealth built entirely on stolen spice. Endless streams of silver and gold overflow the velvet, paying for a fragrant and miraculous cure, demanded by terrified kings. A heavily guarded merchant galleon drops its massive anchor, surviving a long and highly dangerous voyage into the Grand Canal. Thick hemp ropes groan under the immense heavy weight, hoisting a barrel of prized dark seeds above the emerald water. Powerful aristocrats gather eagerly inside the magnificent marble palace, anticipating the delivery of precious golden spice, commanding absolute global power. A sharp feather quill scratches across the thick parchment, recording a massive and highly shocking profit from a single dark seed. Massed nobility feast under the glow of crystal chandeliers, consuming the exotic and highly intoxicating powder as a pure status symbol. The hard wooden shell meets a sharp silver grater, showering roasted meat with highly precious dust to display incredible wealth. Iron gates lock tightly to protect the dark warehouses, securing a fragile and completely monopolized trade stretching across the entire globe. Cold steel reflects the dim light of a lantern, defending the barrels of highly coveted seeds with extreme and lethal force. Rival European monarchs stare intensely at vast, expanding maps, harboring a deep and incredibly venomous jealousy over the great Venetian wealth. A sharp brass compass traces a dangerous new route, searching blindly for the hidden magical islands to break the supreme monopoly. Massive foreign shipyards begin to construct a terrifying fleet, preparing a highly violent and brutal voyage to steal the spice monopoly. Molten iron pours slowly to forge a heavy cannon, signaling the tragic and highly violent end of the peaceful botanical paradise. A dark and terrible storm gathers across the sea, bringing a heavily armed and ruthless empire toward the vulnerable, isolated islands. Massive foreign warships breach the silent horizon, bringing a terrifying and highly destructive force to the peaceful island paradise. A heavy iron anchor plunges violently downward, crushing the fragile and ancient coral reef beneath the dark, rolling waves. Ruthless mercenaries storm the black volcanic shores, holding cold steel and deadly loaded weapons against the native island people. Heavy leather boots march across the dirt, trampling a pure and golden nutmeg fruit into the dark, muddy earth. Indigenous leaders watch the massive, dark fleet, sensing a tragic and completely devastating doom approaching their sacred, ancient homeland. Polished steel gun barrels reflect the sunlight, threatening the quiet and completely defenseless civilization with absolute, brutal military power. A ruthless imperial commander demands absolute surrender, shouting cruel words of total corporate dominance under the hot, tropical sun. An unfair paper contract is slammed down, enforcing a strict and highly bloody monopoly on the sacred natural resource. Heavy cannons fire into the dense jungle, shattering the ancient and peaceful botanical sanctuary with deafening, raw, explosive power. A burning lead musket ball flies fast, tearing violently through a lush green leaf, destroying the quiet, natural beauty. Traditional wooden homes erupt in violent flames, consuming the rich and beautiful island culture, leaving only dark, choking smoke. Hot, greedy flames lick the sacred trees, turning the precious and fragrant green canopy into a black, dying nightmare. Innocent families flee into the high mountains, running blindly from a terribly ruthless corporation that desires only pure gold. A drop of blood hits the spice, matching perfectly with the vibrant red mace, sealing a truly tragic fate. The cruel empire plants its heavy flag, claiming a rich and violently stolen territory for the distant European kings. A brutal governor orders the absolute destruction, silencing an ancient and entirely peaceful population to secure absolute global dominance. A heavy steel blade slices the humid air, severing a beautiful and highly delicate branch, dripping with rich, aromatic sap. Thousands of indigenous elders are marched in chains, walking a dark and completely tragic path toward a highly brutal execution. Cold iron chains drag heavily across the earth, crushing the fallen and highly sacred spices into a dark, bloody mud. A terrifying execution square is quickly built, destroying a rich and utterly vibrant culture to control a tiny seed. A sharp mercenary sword catches the harsh sunlight, reflecting a cold and intensely violent greed before the terrible, fatal strike. A dark curtain of silence falls over Banda, leaving an empty and deeply haunted island, stripped of its native soul. A dark tear of crimson sap falls slowly, staining the hard and woody outer shell, mirroring the tragic human cost. New massive plantations rise from the bloody ashes, born from a completely brutal slave labor to feed greedy European markets. A heavy whip cracks through the humid air, leaving a harsh and deeply violent scar on the sacred ancient earth. Massive trading ships depart the heavily fortified harbor, carrying a stolen and incredibly valuable cargo toward a distant, wealthy empire. A wooden barrel is sealed with iron nails, locking the rare and magically scented dust away from its tragic home. The ruthless corporation counts its massive golden profits, ignoring a dark and entirely unforgivable genocide buried in the faraway ocean. A pristine silver coin reflects a dying fire, shining with a cold and bloody wealth, extracted directly from human suffering. One tiny island remains defiantly out of reach, sparking a bitter and immensely costly war between two great modern empires. The tiny island of Run resists the siege, holding a massive fortune in spice, against the vast Dutch military might. A heavy lead cannonball shatters the ancient earth, destroying the deeply sacred and beautiful roots of the prized nutmeg trees. Exhausted empires finally gather around a long table, seeking a highly profitable and permanent end to the brutal spice wars. Dark black ink flows onto the heavy parchment, drafting an incredibly shocking and historic geographical trade between greedy royal crowns. A vast map displays two tiny distant dots, preparing to swap an entirely unknown, muddy swamp for absolute global dominance. A heavily ringed finger traces the drawn coastline, pointing to a cold and muddy island sitting across the Atlantic Ocean. The British accept a bleak and swampy settlement, trading the heavily coveted and magical golden spice for a cold wilderness. Cold, muddy water completely covers the raw earth, contrasting sharply with the fiercely hot and deeply bloody volcanic eastern islands. The Dutch Empire successfully secures absolute total monopoly, celebrating a deeply violent and bloody victory paid entirely with human lives. Thick red wax officially seals the shocking treaty, permanently locking the terrible and cruel fate of two vastly different worlds. Centuries slowly pass over the cold northern swamps, transforming the completely ignored and worthless trading post into a towering metropolis. Modern glass towers pierce the bright blue sky, standing on a dark and entirely forgotten foundation of ancient bloody spice. The once mighty volcanic paradise remains quiet today, hiding the deeply tragic and bloody scars beneath its lush green canopy. A single seed rests inside a modern kitchen, holding the silent and incredibly violent memory of a lost ancient world. The simple spice falls gracefully into hot coffee, perfectly masking a deeply horrific and bloody imperial history with sweet warmth.